Welcome to another episode of It's Always Sunny in Japan. We've had quite a few of these. I'm your host, Red Drum Arts. I want you to introduce yourselves.
My name is Patty.
And I'm Lugia, and I can't speak a lick of Japanese.
I can speak a little bit of Japanese because I can talk. I don't know.
I know
um,
Konnichiwa, and that's it.
I mean, I know like a few phrases from
Listen, if I
anime and
try to
like the
speak
movies we've
Japanese,
watched.
it's just gonna be that scene from Scary Movie 4 where they just start saying Japanese words, but they're not actually speaking Japanese.
They aren't even saying Japanese like words. I mean, they are, but they're saying like companies like Sony,
They say tsunami, bonsai,
Toyota.
kamikaze.
I've
And
seen
stuff like
Scary
that.
Movie 4. I do not remember that scene.
It was the ring scene.
How old
Or
were
the
you when you
Ju-on
saw that
scene, The
movie?
Grudge.
Uh,
The only
like
scary movie I've
10, I
seen is
think.
the only scary
That's the
movie I've
only
seen is
scary movie I've seen.
the first one, and that was in college.
I came across the fourth one on TV one day and just kept watching.
That part
From what I
probably didn't
understand,
stick with you then. Like if you
the
were
first
like 10
No.
years old.
There are two parts in Scary Movie 4 that stuck with me. One is when they're trying to let the guy in the car, but for some reason the door won't unlock. And the other is the scene where they parody Signs.
I never really got the point of the first scary movie, just because it's a parody of Scream, but Scream is already like a comedy satire of the slasher genre, so it just felt like redundant to me. It also pairs like I Know What You Did Last Summer, so I feel like they should have just leaned more into that side of things.
Look, yeah, have you
Kaiser's
seen any
Soze.
other scary movie other
No,
than the fourth
no, I
one?
haven't even seen the movie. I've just seen clips. I've
Yeah, I mean,
seen
I knew that.
Disaster
I've
Movie,
seen
but that's a whole
I've seen
different
it.
can of worms.
I've seen a handful of clips too. Yeah, like I've seen that scene Lugia was referring to. Who directed Scary Movie? Keenan Wayans. I didn't know that. I thought it was like the Zucker brothers, or maybe they did the sequels. Oh yeah, okay. The Zucker brothers directed 3 and 4. The Wayans brothers did 1 and 2. Man, that's weird though, because 1 and 2 is better, and like the Zucker brothers are much better directors. What the fuck happened? Like they made like two of the best like spoof movies ever. They made three of the best spoof movies ever, and then
This was like well over a decade after, so maybe they lost the spark. I don't know.
I mean no, because like in 1998 was wait when was this was like two Scary Movie 3 was 2003. I don't know if their other 2003 movie My Boss's Daughter is good. I've never seen it, but they did Basketball, and that was the movie they did with the South Park duo.
Well, did they write Scary Movie 3 or did they just direct it?
I mean, a lot of it's like visual comedy, so like it still would be. No, it was a different writers. Huh. But the writers, what the fuck? Oh my god. Do I know what the writer of Scary Movie 3's filmography is?
What?
What?
Okay, so he did Scary Movie 3, Scary Movie 4, the Hangover movies, also Chernobyl. And I was like, what do you mean he did Chernobyl?
What?
That's
What
quite
do
a
you mean the
departure.
right? Yo, what the fuck? And he's like the only writer of Chernobyl. He's the sole writer. It was like, oh my god.
How?
He also did. He also did a superhero movie, which was pretty bad. Okay, maybe Scary Movie 3 and 4 aren't bad. I mean, they got like clearly talented people working on it. Who's the other writer of Scary Movie? Yeah, okay. And the let's see, the second writer of Scary Movie 4 was Tom Lewis. Now, like his filmography isn't that great, but it's not like terrible. He did The Wedding Singer and The Waterboy, which is like most people would say those are like the two good Adam Sandler movies. Those are like on the good side of things. So
You know what? Let's save all this for our Scary Movie 4 discussion.
the
That's next week's movie,
whole
right,
nine
Lugia?
briars. Whole 9 yards. Wait. I just want to see who's the second writer of Scary Movie 3, just so we can put a little bow on it. Pat Proft. What did he write? He wrote the original Naked Gun movie. All right. And he wrote Hot Shots Part 2 Holiday Special. Ooh, what the fuck? Okay, that's actually kind of funny. Did you know the guy who wrote the Star Wars Holiday Special was the dude that wrote Hot Shots
Are you
and the Naked Gun movies?
are you kidding me?
Nope. I mean, the special had like 5 writers, but he's one of them. Pat Proft,
How much
the writer of the
input did
Naked
he have on
Gun.
the holiday special?
I have no idea. Stir, whip, stir, whip, 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 stir.
I feel like we're obligated to talk about that movie one of these days, like during Christmas
I've
time.
never seen it.
You've never
Uh,
you've never seen it?
No, I
Here's the
don't know
thing.
anything about it. All I know is that it's terrible. I don't know
Okay.
any of the specifics.
The last like a bunch of Star Wars movies all released around Christmas time, so I guess we could like talk about Star Wars and then also that, like an actual movie and then also that. Anyway, so they announced a Pharrell Williams biopic. He's had a very prolific career. Anyway, for some reason, the biopic is gonna be in Lego. I don't know why.
I guess it's just a stylistic choice.
That's not something you can hand wave with a stylistic choice. Why the fuck is it animated in Lego? It's not a parody. It's his actual like it's an actual like documentary. It's
Is
just
this what he wanted?
I don't know.
I
I
don't know. In the trailer starts with him saying, "Hey, what if we did a biopic in Lego?" And they're like, "Wait, really?" He's like, "Yeah, why not?" So maybe.
I'm so like confused. Like I'm looking at an interview like about it, and he was like, Pharrell's like, I enjoy stop motion animation, and it's like, but that's not what this is. It's like, well then why'd you? What do you mean? Like I like stop motion. This isn't stop motion, but I like stop motion. I was like, all right, that's not even like the weird Lego news like this week. That's not even the only one because they're making like a Lego Horizon Zero Dawn, which is like one of PlayStation's like flagship franchises now. So I guess they're like remaking the first game in Lego, and that's gonna be like the new Lego game or something. Making a documentary slash biopic out of Lego, and also you're gonna be remaking this like big AAA game in Lego, and that's gonna be the next Lego video. Like that's so weird. Has Lego ever done that before? Remake a video game?
Remade a game in Lego.
Well,
Not
aren't
to my
Because
there
like
like
knowledge.
multiple Star Wars games?
yeah, but
Well,
those are
yeah,
like
but
adaptations of movies. Those are like original. Like the games are new. Like they didn't take like an existing Star Wars game and just do it
But
again in Lego.
there already were Lego Star Wars games before some of
yeah,
the
but
newer
not
ones.
yeah, but not
Oh,
they weren't beat for beat. These the Lego Star Wars and further extent like
okay.
Lego movie games
Remaking
are
your own
basically
game
the
is.
movies.
I know they made like a new Lego Star Wars thing where they like remade some of the earlier stuff, and also added new stuff, but they basically like redid the first six movies. Remaking your own game is completely different from remaking like someone else's. This is like if they suddenly announced like Lego Super Mario, and it's just like Mario 64, but all the graphics are Lego for some reason. I was like, that would be weird, right?
Well, isn't that what Lego
As
Dimensions
far
kind of is? I mean, that's also stretching to like animation and
no
such,
that
but Sonic's in it.
no that no that's like taking those characters and just making them
Okay.
Lego in a larger scale adventure game. We're asking, has there ever been a time where they just remade a game entirely out of Lego? As far as I'm aware, that's never
I
been done
don't.
before.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But speaking of Lego Dimensions, don't know what's really weird about that? I found out that
What?
like some of those people almost treat like semi-canonically, like the Portal one. In the Portal Lego one, it's really weird that Portal had a tie-in with Lego, but Portal Lego Dimensions, that level, GLaDOS reacts like the events of Portal 1 and 2 happened. And like she's like, "Why did you come back? What's wrong with you?" I was like, I don't know. I just think that's kind of funny that like I feel like most games they would kind of like choose to just make it be like, "Oh, we're just like redoing the first one."
I guess this is the
It's
closest thing we're gonna get to a Portal 3.
yeah, I guess. Part of it also reminds me of like sometimes Kingdom Hearts they'll just like have like a remake of like the movie and like Sora's in it. But like sometimes it will be like an original story that takes place after, and that's kind of what like it reminds me of, which like cracks me up. Like when Sora goes to like Toy Story 3 and Woody's like, "This bitch has no friends."
But speaking of video games, and I did mention Sonic the Hedgehog earlier. So the I think it was the Summer Games Fest that happened recently. It was that or State of Play. I don't know which. I
It
didn't.
was Summer Games Fest.
Okay. I didn't watch it, but I did take a quick peek at the new Sonic X Shadow Generations announcements, and oh boy, so it is now confirmed that Black Doom is once again back as the main antagonist, and he has not been in the game since Shadow's own game back in 2005. There's a portion of the trailer where Shadow grows wings, like flesh wings.
Okay.
There's a couple returning stages that have not been in Generations. We're getting Kingdom Valley back from Sonic 06, and strangely enough, Rail Canyon from Sonic Heroes. I don't know when the last time you played Sonic Hero was, but I'm willing to bet Rail Canyon is not one of your favorite stages.
It's probably one of the more memorable ones because like, admittedly, I don't know anyone that actually really remembers like 90% of the levels in Sonic Heroes. So I feel like they were just doing a poll of like, all right, well, which ones do people remember? And then we're like, okay, maybe we can make like a good version of it.
Okay, but here's the thing: people don't like Rail Canyon. People just
I
remember
don't
it
know,
because
but
it's the one where you rail grind like for 90% of it.
it doesn't.
That
What's that
is a
one
weird.
that level in like Sonic Adventure 2 that's like mostly rail grinding too?
Final Rush, but that one's different. That
Yeah,
one
well,
has
people
some
like
rail,
that one. I'm
but
just
yeah,
saying, like maybe they're like,
because there's
I was
multiple
like maybe
branching
they'll be like
pathways
maybe
in that one.
yes, I figure maybe they're like, all right, let's like try to make Rail Canyon and turn it into something like Final Rush, which we like. Like I kind of respect the idea of like taking a level people don't like and trying to remake it into something people would like.
I guess
I
that's
don't know.
fair, but I don't know why you do Rail Canyon when there's like other stages that you could take from heroes like Grand Metropolis.
That is a weird selection, but I'm thinking more in terms of. I thought they would take a level from the latest Sonic games that came out after Generations. Like I thought they'd take a level from like Lost World, Forces, and Frontiers and slap them on because that is 3 games representing an era like the other stages were.
I don't know.
Surprised
I
they didn't
think
do that.
since this is basically like a side mode for Sonic Generations, they kind of just wanted to stick with what they know for that and not have like any
Yes.
future continuity
And,
affect the game.
and what games is it? And what games is it, by the way?
Sonic X Shadow Generations.
No, no, I mean what like are the new levels from? Which
Kingdom
games?
Kingdom Valley is from Sonic 06 and Rail Canyon is from Sonic Heroes.
I think they just wanted to just do levels at like from games that Shadow was like an active part in.
Maybe.
Um, that's not
But
everything
but
though.
is that it? The only two? Only two
There's
levels?
that. We're confirmed to get a Bio Lizard boss fight. I think Radical Highway was also shown off, though I'm not sure.
Radical High was in the 3S one, so I wouldn't be surprised.
There's also open zone hub worlds, so this is literally Sonic Shadow's Fury. And one more thing, and this caught me completely off guard. There is a DLC skin for Shadow that you can get called Terios the Hedgehog. And if you don't know who Terios is, that is Shadow's beta design for Sonic Adventure 2.
He kind of looks like he reminds me of that fucking You guys ever play Secret Rings?
Yeah,
Dark Spine or whatever? Yeah, that's
it
what he
kind
kind
of
of reminds
does
me
look
of.
like Dark Spine. I see him more as just like an edgy version of Sonic, which I guess is what
Yeah.
they were trying to go for originally, but
Anyway, let's talk about the actual big announcement at the Summer Games Fest. We got more Killer Bean footage. The Killer Bean video game. You ready for that?
I I was not expecting that.
Look, if it's not scroll with a gun, I'm not interested.
From what it looks like GTA, but with like Max Payne type like shooting mechanics, which is really funny to me.
I didn't look into it. All I know is that it exists. I don't know shit about Killer Bean. I just know it's a meme, but like
It's like one of those like half ironic memes where people actually like kind of do genuinely like it, but like it's also like kind of goofy. So like they're like half making fun of it. What the fuck? Like I'm looking at the trailer right now, and there's just a scene where he shot a bullet, where like a bullet's flying at him. So he shoots the bullet, and then like the bullet like fucking ricochets off and hits an enemy. It's like what the fuck?
Going back to my comment earlier, do you guys actually know about scroll with a gun?
wait, that's an actual thing. You're not making a joke.
No, that's an actual game.
Uh,
It
no.
was announced like a year ago. It's literally you are a squirrel with a gun being chased by government agents.
Isn't that just
And
Conker's
not
Bad Fur
like
Day?
not like an anthropomorphic squirrel, like an actual like real world squirrel. And it has its own theme song. It's fucking ridiculous, but like it's so funny. No, and the gun is like an actual size gun. It's not like a squirrel sized gun. It's literally the squirrel is like using 2 hands to prop up this regular sized
The
gun.
gun is bigger than the squirrel.
Yes, the
Okay,
gun is
that
bigger than the squirrel.
okay, that's funny.
What's even better is that apparently from the footage I saw, when the squirrel shoots the gun, it suffers from whatever you call it when the gun pushes the squirrel back
You
whenever
just
it
push back.
shoots. Pushback, yes. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
What is the premise of this game? Like, is it
I have
open
no
world?
idea.
Is it like GTA or
I think
something?
I have no idea. I just randomly came across the trailer one day and I'm like, I have no idea what this is, but I love it. I don't know. That's all I got. I just wanted to make you guys aware of the amazingness that is Squirrel with a Gun.
Okay.
All right. Yasujiro Ozu. I assume you guys are not familiar with his works
No.
prior to this
Nope.
day. All right. What order did you guys see these films in?
I saw I Was Born But first.
I was the opposite. I saw Good Morning first.
All right, interesting. So when I first saw it, I saw Good Morning first, and then here's the thing. I basically found out about Good Morning on a whim. I was like scrolling through Twitter one day. I saw like a clip from it, and I was like, "That looks like really good." Like I really the liked the look of the movie. So I watched it, and then later on, I found out that it was basically meant to be sort of like a pseudo slash spiritual remake of an earlier film of his called I Was Born But. So then I watched that. I guess give you guys a little bit of history about the film. So I Was Born But. Um, it was a black and white silent comedy. It was the first of 6 Ozu films to win an award for Best Film of the Year, the Cinema Junpo Award, which is this Japanese film magazine, I guess. So I guess it's one of his first like films to really get some critical buzz. Yeah. So Ozu started making movies in 1927. So he was like generally one of like the OG kind of silent filmmakers. I think like even like what was Charlie Chaplin's first movie? Charlie Chaplin's first directed feature was The Kid in 1921, although he was making movies since like the 1910s, but yeah, to give you like a little bit perspective, like Ozu started his career when Charlie Chaplin was still very much working. I Was Born But is 1932, which was his entire which is during his silent era. He has 3 eras. He's got his silent era, which is what this is from, his sound black and white era, and then his color films. So I basically showed you something from the end of his career and the beginning of his career. Although a lot of his like most famous films are definitely in that kind of middle period. If you've heard of any of his films, it was probably Tokyo Story. Tokyo Story, like late spring, early summer, those are like easily probably his most famous films, which is his black and white sound era. We're starting off on I Was Born But, by the way, since I just figured to go in chronological order.
Okay.
So yeah. The film stories around two brothers who's basically their faith in their father, who, like as an office worker is kind of shaken as they ultimately like perceive him as like a bitch. I don't know how to like say that in a nice way, but like basically they see that his dad is kind of the office clown, and they lose respect for him. When he actually almost like explained that to him, it kind of reminded me a little bit of this film called Death of Stalin, where there's this like we follow like Stalin's cabinet after Stalin died, and there's this one character who's like a complete joke. When you find out that this joke is like him like acting a fool is kind of like strategic because it's just like a good way to curry favor. But anyway, so I was a big fan of Little Rascals growing up, so going into this, I thought, hey, this kind of similar to like it's another black and white kind of like silent comedy featuring kids. I was like, that's kind of cool. And even like Little Rascals eventually went to sound and they succeeded. And
Before we, sorry to interrupt, but before we continue any further, I just want to give a preference. I was not able to find a version of this movie with subtitles, which what wasn't really a problem until like the last 30 minutes where there was a lot of talking.
Well,
I
damn.
don't know what version you guys saw.
I saw it on YouTube where there was no sound or
but there
music
was
rather.
subtitles.
There were subtitles, yes.
Here's the thing, I tried looking for a version with subtitles, and I found like but every video I found that said I was born but with English subtitles.
Okay, 1, did you
Some,
look
some
on YouTube?
sometimes
And 2, did you hit the closed captions button?
I hit the closed captions button. I tried everything.
Okay.
Nothing worked.
so that's kind of interesting. So basically, you saw all the funny comedy stuff because here's the thing. Most of the movie is just kind of funny comedy stuff, and were you able to understand that part? I
I
guess
was able to
like the
understand the
start.
plot just fine. It's just don't ask me to judge it on a dialogue level.
So the funny thing about I Was Born But is 90% of the movie is just kind of a funny comedy, and then 10% of it is a really strong criticism of like the misery of living under capitalism.
I found it very interesting how since these kids like were new to this town and they got bullied, they decided like they're gonna be a part of the gang. They're gonna get power. They're gonna be like the most important people, like their dad. And then that idea of power is just thrown off completely when they like really learn about what's going on with their dad. So they're
Yeah.
just
I,
angry and
the so
confused about it.
Yeah, the social dynamics like this film was like really really interesting, and I especially like how they feel like very real to kids to me because like they're a bit emotional. They model off their parents and whatnot. It's kind of interesting because like towards the end they're sort of like put into like an oddly like kind of complex kind of like social situation like when they're actually like understanding their dad and whatnot. And yeah, it's like an oddly like it's a very simple kind of film. It's oddly like very mature. Part of it kind of reminds me of like Calvin and Hobbes and like a newspaper comic, because like with like Charlie Brown and like Calvin and Hobbes and whatnot, like it's also that kind of like simple childhood thing, and you see some things from like a child perspective, but then like there can be like an odd moment where like it's really there's something like really substantial being said, and that's what this movie kind of felt for me. I kind of like how you like that rich kid that like how they're kind of like friends with him, even though they're kind of like beefing the whole
Yeah.
time. Well, what did you think, Patty? Even though you kind of, I don't know how much of like the
Um,
thematic value you're able to really grab from it.
like I said, I can't judge any of it based off of dialogue. So if there were any finer points that were given to us via the dialogue, I can't comment on that. But to talk about the film overall, I thought it was cute.
Think about like I'm thinking of like all like the images of the film. I feel like it you could like understand it pretty well without like any dialogue, because like you see the scene of like the dad like showing like the footage of him with the goofy faces and like how the kids
The
react and like
kids are
he's mad.
disappointed, and he comes home,
Yeah,
and the
I
kids.
guess like yeah, I guess like the only major thing you would miss is like what the dad actually says to the kids.
Yeah, because
So like I
there's a
guess you don't.
point where they're sitting down and they're eating rice balls that their mother made, and he's like, "Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And one of them says, "I want to be a lieutenant general," and he says, "Why not a full general?" And then he points to his brother because he said he's gonna be the full general.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I was able to understand because to me this kind of felt like two short films, like because the first half is the kids dealing with the bullies, like they don't want to go to school to deal with the bullies, so they just spend all day in the field, and they think that
yeah,
by eating eggs they'll somehow get the courage to fight back against the bullies because that's what the bullies eat. And then it shifts to them being disappointed in their father and not speaking to him because he doesn't have a
yeah.
higher position in his job. I was able to understand it just fine.
Again, it reminds me of like newspaper comics and stuff like Darwin with the Kid, where there's like real kind of like loose kind of story. It's just more of like a slice of life, like day in the life kind of thing. I thought it was like really interesting, just from like a historical perspective. This doesn't even have to do with the story, but like this was a 1932 film about Japan, so like this is like one of the only times I think I've ever seen like a depiction of like pre World War II Japan. And this is like before like even like the Western world was like really aware of Japan, of like and what they were doing. So like I thought this was like so fascinating how like a lot of people always like kind of talk about how like after World War II Japan got very Americanized, but like quite frankly, this world is like already so familiar. Like when you watch this, like I feel like you could show this to, like almost any kid with like like any middle class kid, and they would be like, yeah, this is familiar, you know? And I just think that's interesting because this is like 100 years old in a completely different country, and in a country like where this was like before like US influence really like was in. I just kind of find like the universality of this to be compelling on just
It
like a
is interesting
historical
as
kind of
like a
perspective.
time capsule sort of thing.
Like it's like the fact that like it's a time capsule, but also like when I watch this, like it doesn't even like feel like
It
that
just feels
like
like something that like you would go through growing up.
yeah, like the special weird thing is like if you like showed me this movie and like completely blind, didn't tell me what year it was, I honestly probably would have guessed it came out in like the 50s or something. I've seen like other movies from like the 30s in America, and like I feel like they don't have this kind of like this vibe, this like suburban kind of like not suburban, but like it's got kind of that like suburban sort of vibe to it. And I was like, huh. Like it almost oddly feels like ahead of its time. Like this to me like reminds me of kind of like the idyllic kind of like America, but like the idyllic America of like again the post-war era. When I think of like classic like pre-World War II America, it's like oh like the city, like everyone's always thinking about like the flappers, even like Little Rascals was kind of like They kind of lived in somewhat of like a semi-metropolitan area, like smaller areas of like a city or whatnot. And the 30s, obviously, that's like Great Depression, so like that's got a very different image. So I was like, it's just interesting, just like completely like unrelated to
Because
like the story and stuff. I just think it's a fascinating kind
the
of like look.
world this movie was made in no longer exists.
Like it no longer exists, but also like it feels like it does. Like again, like this is a world that feels very familiar. That's really funny. This is like a random detail. The title's a bit odd. It's like I was born, comma, but, and then ellipses. What's interesting is like
That
Ozu has a lot of movies with a naming convention like this, but from what I understand, there's like no correlation. Like he had this earlier film called I Graduated, comma, but
Yeah, I was
dot
wondering,
dot
like,
dot.
what is the significance of the title for this movie?
Yeah, and there was like I flunked, comma, but I have no fucking idea. From like I graduated, but and then I flunked, but there seems to be like a direct kind of like tie there because it was graduation and then so I guess the idea of like this sort of the butt trilogy is like you're kind of following like different kind of stages of youth because like high schooler like about graduation then like the kind of college and then we jump way back to like childhood but I guess also like we follow parenting so like I guess it's almost like a full circle thing where like we kind of see like we start off youthful high school then college then adulthood but also childhood so it kind of like loops back around so like I'm thinking like
was
that's
this the first movie of the Butt trilogy?
no it's the last.
Really? Huh.
Yeah, I graduated but was first then I flunked but so like part of me wonders is almost like that's kind of why like it has the father focus because like
Maybe it's
we're
going in
I
reverse. I don't know.
it might be going reverse, but the way I was thinking is that like since it started off with graduation, then college, and then we do follow the adults. Like I think almost the idea is that we're almost supposed to think that this is almost like like a youth adolescence to adulthood, and then like the kind of cycle restarts again with like kind of the child. I don't know though because again I've not seen those other two movies. I didn't even really know those two existed until like I was doing research for this episode. So I was like, oh, what the fuck are these two? Unfortunately, you can't see I graduated, but it is
Is it
a
lost?
it's not entirely lost. 10 minutes of the film have been found, but the rest of it is lost.
That's a shame.
And from what I understand, it's a full length feature film. I flunked, but I believe is fully found, so that's cool. Yeah, from what I understand, a good chunk of
Maybe
Ozu's work is like entirely lost.
Lost media.
All of his work from 1927 to 1928 is just gone. You can't find it. A good amount of his work from 1929 is lost. The only one that survived is Student Romance Days of Youth, and then there's a handful of minutes from a few of his others. 1930 he has like half of his films are lost, but half are found. So yeah, I Was Born Bud is oddly like it's like the seventh film like of in terms of like stuff you can actually like watch, it's like number 7, although he's made like way more than 7 films before because one back in the day making films is like a lot faster for some reason like so many older directors have like much larger filmographies than most.
maybe the title
It
is a riddle. Trying to
yeah.
figure out exactly the consistency of this Butt trilogy. Maybe the full title is I was born but I somehow graduated and flunked before I even existed.
I was born, but I was a cheer. I'm a cheerleader. But fuck.
Anyway, so unfortunately his silent era is like about half of his silent era is gone. More than half of his silent era is gone, honestly. Thankfully, the rest of his films aren't. His sound black and white films and his color films are not. And while we're on color, you guys have any more thoughts on I Was Born But, or do you want to move on to Good Morning?
I think I've said my piece.
Yeah, same here.
All right. So Good Morning was released in 1956. It is one of Ozu's last films. It is his second film in color, and it's considered to be a loose remake of his 1932 film I Was Born But. Personally, I don't think they're really that similar, but like there's definitely clear parallels that we'll go into later. This film is also considered a little bit kind of like I mean, I guess both of these films are kind of considered somewhat atypical from Ozu's usual output. See, usually Ozu does like these serious, kind of austere, refined family dramas. Um, but these two films clearly focus a lot on childhood, and this film in particular is just raw with childhood, having a good chunk of the movie focusing on fart jokes. One, I just think that's like just like conceptually kind of funny that like such a like a prestige director is just making like a joke about farts. Oddly enough, despite this film kind of being not like considered like really like one of like the big kind of significant Ozu films, I think it's like one of like his more popular ones. I think just because like it's so easy to get your hands on, because like there actually isn't much to say about the production. Besides that, it was meant to be sort of be a loose remake. To get into the story, the film takes place in Tokyo, and we follow a group of kids going home. And there's a lot of unlike Good Morning, we actually follow the parents a lot more in this
You mean
film.
unlike I Was Born But?
Yeah, unlike I Was Born But, where it's like 90% of the kids, and then we just see like little glimpses of adult life through the children's eyes. This one is much more focused on the children's lives, on the adults' parents' lives, and kind of focus on many of the dumb dynamics that kind of go with parenting. One of my favorite parts is kind of like the whole local women's club monthly dues kind of subplot and stuff, just because I kind of feel like there's like this a layer of like passive aggressiveness throughout that was really funny to me. Yeah, there's this noticeable subplot concerning a local women's club's monthly dues, and there's kind of like this somewhat controversy where they believe that the treasurer has given dues to the chairwoman, but said chairwoman denies it. So a bunch of gossip kind of spreads, and everyone thinks that, oh, she must have embezzled the money to buy a new washing machine, and it kind of follows a kind of like yeah, I guess a classic kind of 50s housewife kind of story, which and kind of like the social dynamics of like a the stay at home parents, and what kind of they're doing. And the conclusion of that is, that it was just a mistake. All this bullshit was for nothing. Anyway, the boys are then attracted to the neighbor's house because of the TV, and TV was somewhat new at the time, real special and shit. They see, sumo wrestling match. To give some historical context, sumo wrestling was actually relatively new at the time of this film's release. It was getting rapidly popular. Like sumo wrestling was kind of like the hot new thing when this film was coming out. But of course, their parents kind of like deny them, and there's kind of like this sort of social dynamic. They like conservative parents and like kind of the bohemian, neighbors. And they kind of like assume the wife is a cabaret singer, and then this kind of results in the kids wanting to sort of begging their parents to buy them a TV, and the dad kind of wants to be the hero, so he's like, all right, tells him to be kind of like quiet. A lot of the film kind of focuses on that in a sort of Curb Enthusiasm way, kind of like the passive aggressive kind of niceties. Everyone's saying good morning, refusing to say what they mean. Again, and I'll get into this a bit later, but what this movie oddly kind of reminds me of is like so much satire about like the Midwestern American ideal. Again, like I know this is Japanese, but I feel like there's just a lot of parallels with like the Midwestern kind of like American ideal, and this with like a lot of like American films will like kind of satirize like the Midwest suburbs, and they'll always be like, oh, they're so polite, they got this, it was like, oh, we're a friendly bunch, but like they're not really friendly, they're just polite, but like underneath it all there's like a clear like passive aggressiveness and like a lot of like kind of social dynamics going on, and I don't know, I really really like that. And yeah, there's a lot of kind of rumors and snips with the adults. Basically, like I guess like the way I can say with this film is while the original I guess I Was Born About was also about social dynamics, but it was much more about social dynamics within kind of like a hierarchical financial kind of system. It was more about a child sort of understanding these social dynamics. When this film, it's much more about like the casual social dynamics, just of like being in a community, and rather than it being like kids kind of like viewing these social dynamics, it's more of like we see little slices of both the kids' lives and the parents' lives. Like this one clearly focuses a lot more on the parents, and not just like the dad, but like the mother too. So like you kind of see all of them. The kids obviously kind of go on like a bit of a strike against like their teachers and stuff, and then
They vow to remain silent for like 100 days until they get the TV.
They can't
Ultimately,
speak,
basically,
but farting is okay.
yeah. And there's these salesman characters and whatnot, and these English tutors, and just a bunch of like these little kind of like disparate threads, but everything is like oddly and kind of like a neat little package. Like I was like, even though it doesn't really feel like a lot of these things are kind of related, like I feel like oddly structurally it kind of like is more kind of like cohesive than I Was Born But, even though I Was Born But, like I feel like the two halves are much more like directly related to each other, which is kind of interesting. I don't know, what do you guys think? One, you saw this with subtitles, right?
Yeah, yes, I saw this with subtitles, with sound, the whole ordeal. Don't worry.
Okay, so no issues with this one. All right.
This one was
No, no
significantly
issues.
easier to find.
Yeah, that's expected. Again, one of the reasons I feel like this film was like one of Ozu's more watched films, even though it's not considered like a particular significant entry, is just because it's pretty easy to find relative to some of his other stuff. Versus like, I Was Born But is this black and white. You know, it's not silent. A lot of silent films are like very difficult to find.
I say again, other than the deeper meaning at the end, I was able to understand the other film just fine.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's just kind of like the beauty of kind of silent films is that like a lot of people like kind of just don't admit it, but a lot of silent films you can kind of just understand. Like, okay, you wouldn't understand Joan of Arc without the subtitles because like so much is like on the fucking face, but you know what I mean. Yeah, go on.
You were asking what we thought of this one. So unlike Lugia, I saw this one after I was born, but and I was going into this, I was fully expecting this to be just like a colored, a sound remake of that film. I was surprised to find it wasn't. It was very much its own thing that more or less took certain cues from it, mainly how the kids interact with the parents and how they're upset at them. I
Yeah,
did like this one a bit more than I Was Born, but I thought the addition of the entire neighborhood and how the kids being upset at the parents kind of affected the neighbors and how they thought it was part of a bigger thing about how the mother was mad at them. I thought that was kind of funny. But like similar to I Was Born, but my overall thought is it's cute. It's cute. It's enjoyable.
these films are kind of like almost like comfort films to me. Like, there's like it's got that like cozy feeling to it that like again like reading like Calvin and Hobbes, like watching old Little Rascal, like it's so like nostalgic to me, like in a sense, and like I think part of it is just because of like how warm the cinematography is. It's like we didn't talk about the cinematography much in like the first with I Was Born But like it was very clear, like clearly it's like it's pretty decent if you're able to understand like a film like just through the images, but like I fucking love how Good Morning looks. Like generally, like I think this is like one of my like favorite like shot films like ever. I don't know, something about like just the colors. Like it's like kind of brown. It's kind of like it's like such a cozy brown, you know? I don't know if like I'm explaining it right, but like I really like how this movie looks. Like the entire reason like I watched this movie is just because I saw screenshots from it. I was like, this just seems like a cozy film. What do you guys think of cinematography, I guess?
I honestly have no strong feelings. Like, it looked nice,
Honestly, yeah.
but
I mean, I think the colors looked nice, but that was about it. All right,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. I do not have a whole lot to say about Good Morning. I did not think much of this film at all, which is a shame because I actually did like I Was Born, but I liked seeing how the kids like settled into the new town and how they became part of a gang and they had like strong feelings about their father that ultimately crumbled until they had to rebuild that relationship again with a new lens. I
Yeah, that's kind of like the interesting thing between these two films. Like, I Was Born But is I like a much more clean cut and kind of like stronger arc. Like, Good Morning feels more of like a bunch of interweaving kind of like threads to form more of like
it, it
a
almost it
tapestry of
almost
the
feels like
community.
it almost feels like an episode of a sitcom.
I guess.
Again, like you know, when I was saying newspaper, I was more thinking like this is a newspaper. It just kind of feels like a bunch of kind of like disparate kind of threads kind of weave together. Although I do think that there is like a lot of like kind of thematic parallels between like the arcs in this film and I Was Born But like, cuz I feel like such a strong amount of it is talking about kind of like hierarchies and social dynamics. But here's the thing, I guess in I Was Born But my favorite part of that film was very much like a lot of the kids stuff and how they kind of viewed it. My favorite part of this film was obviously like the mom's arc, Like, I don't know, but, like, the passive aggressiveness with the adult stuff was just really fucking funny to me, where, like, the kids I was just like childhood bullshit, like, the stuff like you'd see, like, in any old sitcom, or like, oh, kids making fart jokes, oh, they're holding their breaths, like, they really want the TV, like, it reminds me of, like, the Simpson episode where, like, Bart and Lisa, they're like, "Oh, can we please go to 18 can we go, mom? Can we go, mom?" It was like, that kind of thing. Even though, like, I do see the parallels, like, what I like about the 2 films are, like, completely different. Yeah, like, the kids
Actually,
stuff in, like, I Was Born, but I actually like, considerably about more the kids stuff, but, like, everything else about Good Morning, I kinda like more. It's weird, I don't know.
it's interesting. Yeah, I have the opposite feelings as you. I feel a stronger
Is
connection and
this
more
because we
opinions
saw them
about
in the
this
opposite
movie.
order?
It's possible. I mean, that's probably it because when I was watching this, I was thinking about I Was Born But and the ways it contrasted. Like I said, I was able to understand I Was Born But mostly because it didn't have any dialogue and it was a silent film. But in this film, there's at one point they actually say where the title comes from, Good Morning, because the adults talk too much, and the kids are like, you keep talking about things like, and kids don't engage in the types of conversations adults have, which I thought was interesting in terms of a connection between the two, because I Was Born But focuses on the kids and this one focuses on the adults, and the title is more clear cut in terms of its connection to everything. I thought that was interesting.
I do like Good Morning more, I saw it first, part of it's just, like, 1, there is, like, a novelty in just, like, kinda how unique it is, just to me, like, I just felt like this is all of our first Ozu films, basically, but, like, have you ever seen a film, like, shot like Good Morning? Like, I don't know, like, I know you like, I talked about all the colors and stuff, but, like, one of the things that, like, again, like, really just compelled me, just, like, how it's shot and, like, how, like, low the camera is and, like, I don't know, like, just I feel like the way you compose the images was kind of unique, and I feel like that, like, kind of just initially is sort of what grabbed me, and then, like, I just found, again, like, all the adult, like, kind of social dynamics just to be kind of interesting. I felt like we're focusing on, like, the entire family and, like, all these little threads and how they kinda thing, and I've honestly kind of felt like part of, like, the social comedy here was actually, like, pretty compelling, and, in a way, like, the funny thing with I Was Born But to me is that, like, I feel like its, like, message is much more, like, overt, and, like, it's got a much more clear arc, but I'm honestly not sure if I prefer that or not. Because like, I feel like with Good Morning, I feel like there's a lot more I could just read into just by it showing this neighborhood, like, and it shows, like, the whole, like, neighborhoods and thus, like, the whole kinda social system, when here it's more of, like, a much good more when I Was Born But has much more of, like, kind of a limited perspective, like, focusing just on the kids and seeing sorta how their worldview things, and, I'm not sure which one's better. I actually think that, like, it works for, like, what each film's going for, like, it works, and I just what I guess compels me about, like, comparing the 2 films is just the fact that, like, they have, like, such kinda different approaches, but, like, they also feel so similar,
Damn, that's
and,
This
actually
is a
fucking
case where I
crazy.
this is a case where I think both this is a case where I think both films work better as a pair than individually, honestly.
yeah, again, I think this is, like this is my best double feature idea so far,
That
quite frankly.
that's insane. Okay, so Patty likes Good Morning more. I like I Was But Born But more, and then you're just like they're equally good.
I think I put the edge to Good Morning just, like, a little bit, but, like, yeah, I don't know, honestly, like, while talking about it, like, I kinda like, my opinion of I Was Born But kinda, like, went up a little bit, like, while we're talking about it right now, like, before I was like 4 out of 5, and, like, Good Morning is 5 out of 5. Now I'm like, I Was Born But is, like, a 4.5 out of 5, like, 9 out of 10 and 10 out of 10, like, I don't know.
Collectively, I don't really have a whole lot to say about either film, but again, I am fascinated by the parallels between them.
One thing I thought was, like, really interesting when, like, comparing the 2 was, well, 1, again, if you want if to go back to the historical angle we were talking about, like, Um, this one is honestly even more of like a moment in time capsule than I Was Born But. Like I Was Born But like takes place much further, but I oddly feel like it's a lot more kind of timeless just because like a lot like eventually every kid kind of like realizes like who their parents are. Like the illusion of your parents is like kind of like the ultimate figures. That gets shattered to everyone eventually, and you just start viewing them as people and just kind of see like the world and systems. Here, well, I do feel like the kind of social dynamics and like the sort of passive aggressiveness of politeness and kind of like how you interact with your neighbors and community. That stuff is timeless. The focus on the TV and the sumo wrestling thing, I feel like gave it much more of like a time capsule feel to it than I Was Born But did because
Because TV was
everyone
like
has a fucking
new.
TV. Yeah, like TV is brand new and sumo wrestling is brand new too. And it's like, it's kind of interesting, kind of like being taken back. I mean, I guess we grew up on TV, and I guess all of us always had like the moment where it's like, "Oh, mom, please, can you buy me the Nintendo DS?" But like, I don't know if like new kids really have that experience anymore because gaming shifted very much to computers, and everyone already has a computer,
At
and
one
it's
point in the
not like this
movie,
huge kind of shakeup. It's like,
one point in
in a
the
way, I
movie,
feel
one of the
like
characters says television will create 100 million idiots, and I'm just like, no, that'll be the internet. Give it time.
now that I say it out loud, it's kind of interesting. I feel like there's like certain like types of film where like the relatability factor like almost ends with our generation. Like after our generation, like they're not gonna be able to relate to some things anymore. Fucking like watching Back to the Future is like, oh, I saw this on a rerun, and like all the kids, all the Gen like Alpha kids watching it are gonna be like, what the
What's a
fuck is a
rerun?
rerun? What's a rerun? And it's like, oh, you whippersnappers. Yeah, that's another like interesting thing, like kind of again the pre-war, post-war thing. Where like, I guess kind of the difference culturally there. That's kind of like interesting because like, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I Was Born But felt like a lot more rural, didn't it? I don't know if you guys felt that too. Like here, I felt like there was like it was a lot more populated. Like there was a much more kind of like dense kind of like community. Like you have a lot of shots of like the town, and you got like you see all these like kind of layers of houses and whatnot. And I mean, I guess like I Was Born But has it too, but I feel like I Was Born But like felt more.
I Was Born But is mainly focused on like the outside field and the
Yeah, it
one
felt
house,
smaller when
whereas
he.
here it's you got these narrow corridors with the houses separating
It
them.
You
feels
could
like yeah,
literally reach
it
out
feels
into the
more
other house.
confining. Yeah, I guess I kind of touched upon this, but Yasujiro Ozu is a very unique director. So all the Japanese films I've shown you before was Kurosawa. Akira Kurosawa was who I showed you before. And Akira Kurosawa he's one of the most influential directors in Japan. Um like next to Ozu. But the thing with Kurosawa was that Kurosawa was like well known for being very influenced by the West. And while Ozu was also to like an extent, Ozu much more built like his own kind of like organic style. And I think one of the sort of defining characteristics of like Ozu's much more like homegrown Japanese style is what people call the tatami shot. In that I don't know if you noticed this, but in the film, the camera's like much more lower to the ground than like in a lot of American films. And that's because in America, like people sit at tables and stuff, and like it's much more like common to sort of see people from like a top half sort of thing. But in Japan, people just sit on the ground at home, and they're like the desks are like much more like lower to the ground and whatnot. And so because of that, like Ozu was just like, well, let's keep the camera from like a much more lower kind of perspective, and I feel like it kind of gives the film a kind of unique feel. Like that's what I really kind of like liked about it, and the square kind of like box things, and like the fact that you see kind of like the full body and so low. It like generally does remind me of like how like newspaper comics are kind of like drawn. Again, to bring the newspaper comic comparison again, but like it's a bit more of a slow, more meditative style. And another thing, and I don't know if you noticed this, so in Good Morning, like there's a bit more camera movement than I was than no in I Was Born But there's a bit more camera movement than in Good Morning. That's just because like as his style sort of changed, he decided to move the camera less and less, and eventually like and he just stopped using tracking shots altogether in those color films. So like basically every shot of Good Morning is just a shot. And I don't know if like if any of you guys noticed that because like that stood out to me a lot when I first saw his this movie where I was like, wait a second, like he doesn't move the camera at all. It's just like it's literally just like a frame and like if a character moves, like you're not following the characters or anything like
It
you would
just
in a normal
cuts.
movie or anything. Yeah, and I was like,
I honestly, when I first saw Good Morning, I did not notice that, and that okay. So Good Morning is obviously a very slow paced movie. I think that kind of added to the slow pace. because there wasn't really any motion going on with the cinematography.
To bring the comic things again, it felt like I was just seeing a bunch of like panels. I was
Yeah,
like, ah, that's kind of interesting. I don't know if you guys have any more final thoughts,
not really.
but I pretty much said my piece.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've said my take.
Again, I really don't have much to say about Good Morning.
Yeah, my overall thought for both films was that it was cute.
Did you think they were funny?
Was not expecting the farting.
Yeah, yeah. That's
I wouldn't say they're haha funny, but they're like amusing funny, if that makes any
yep.
sense.
It's like reading a newspaper comic. I'm just gonna keep making that one comparison. Yeah. 2 thumbs up. I highly recommend this movie. If you like it, check out, Cow and Hobbs, Peanuts, Little Rascals, and I don't know, Radio Days, Story, one of those films. So, next week.
All right.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna be real. I did not really know what I wanted to do for next week. So I know when I gave you guys a choice, one time, I know I mentioned this movie, but you went with the other choice, so I figured, you know what, we'll go with it. So we are going to be returning to a director that we've talked about quite a few times on here, Edgar Wright. And for next week, we are going to be talking about Last Night in Soho.
Interesting. That is actually the only Edgar Wright movie I have not seen. Actually, only Edgar Wright project in general I have not seen, because I've seen his TV show.
I'll be honest, I had a feeling you were gonna choose this one
Yeah,
because I remember you told me you wanted to.
I've never seen this film, so this will be
I
fun.
haven't either.
I had another idea for a film, but I can wait on that. I don't even know if it's gonna be a so bad it's good movie. I've never seen it. I just know the name.
This is going to be interesting because this film has a very mixed reputation.
Oh,
Because
really?
it draws a lot. Yeah. Like, it's generally positive, but, like, how do I put this? A lot of, like, so this film draws a lot from kind of Giallo films, and a lot of, like, fans of Giallo movies don't like it. But people who aren't fan of Giallo movies do seem to like it. Yeah, apparently, like, it's very similar to it's also similar to, like, some Polanski movies, which is funny because we just talked about Polanski movie, not too long ago, but yeah.
You got a closer?
Good morning and good night.